Now that we created our effect file, now we're ready to create our first effect. And if we go through this step by step, what's going on, when we submit the form, we dispatch the first action we already created. We update the store with the name that we get from the form data. And then also we can listen to this action from an effect. When that action gets hit, we could go deal with our service, our fake API in this case. And when we get back a response, then we could dispatch a second action. This action we haven't created yet. This action, all we're going to do is pass in a payload in this case, and then update the reducer. First, let's go create our second action before we create our effect. Inside the customer support action file, we'll add a new action. And we'll call this one send message status. And we're using the create action method like we did above. And then here, I'm being very descriptive. This is where we're going to be dispatching the action from, the customer support effect file. And here is the event. Then the payload is going to be just a Boolean, and I called it is sent success. And that's pretty much it for the effect. That's all we need to do. Save this file. And let's set up our reducer. Inside of our reducer, we'll need to update it and add another property. And this property is going to be for holding a Boolean that we're getting back from the action. Inside of the reducer, the first thing we'll want to do is add another property to our interface, to our state. And I'll call this one is sent success. And this will be a Boolean. And then we're getting an error here. So we'll set this as well. I'm going to also add here or null. So this could be set to null as well. Down here, I'll go ahead and set that property and I'll set it to null. Now that we set up our state and we set up our initial state, now we can add another on method to listen to this new action that we just created. I'll add that right below here. Don't forget the comma. And then I'll paste another snippet. Save this so it formats it. And then we'll need to bring in our new action from the customer support action file. And here we're passing in the action. Inside of this action is going to be the Boolean or the property called is sent success. And right here, that's how we're getting it. And we're setting it to the new property within our store. Also, don't forget to add the ... state. This is going to return a copy of our current state. Now that we set up our reducer, let's do some housekeeping. Up here, as you can see, the actions are starting to pile up. And if we have like 30 different actions, this could get really messy really fast. So there's a cleaner way of doing this. Right below this line, I'll add another import. And this is a lot cleaner way of pulling in all your actions. So now whenever we want access to our actions from the customer support actions file, we'll just use this. And now we can remove this. Copy this. And make sure we refactor this. And add it to the second one as well. Save it again so it formats it. And now we just set up our reducer. This is the way you want your reducer file to look. Let's set up our effect. Now we're ready to work inside the effect file. And what we're going to do is bring in our service into the constructor. Then also we're going to need to bring in or import our actions so we can listen to them and dispatch them. So we'll need to bring them into our effect file as well. Inside the customer support effect, the first thing we'll want to do is bring in our service into the constructor. I'll add that on to the end here. And then bring in the customer support service from the shared folder. If we check out this customer support service, I'll click on it and hit F12. This is just a basic method. All we do is we pass in the form information. We check to see if there's a name. If there is, we return an observable of true. If there is no name, then I return an observable of false. I didn't bother setting up a real API or adding any form validation because in this module, we didn't really need it. If we close down our customer support service, now we're ready to bring in our actions. I'll import that at the top here. And now we'll have access to all our actions by using this. Now we're ready to create our first effect. I'll add this effect at the top here, right above the constructor. And I have this snippet generator. If you hit A/NGRX, then hit enter, this will generate you a snippet automatically. And this is a extension that I have in Visual Studio Code. So if you're using Visual Studio Code and you're interested in this extension, the extension name is Angular Snippet version 9 made by John Papa. So if you install that and run it, you'll get access to this snippet generator. Let's remove this and run that again. So A/NGRX, hit enter, and then you can just start filling in the information and hit tab, and it'll just jump to the next line that you need to fill in. Now the effect name is going to be send message. And we're using the create effect method that's being pulled in for us from NGRX Effects. And then inside of here, we're using the actions. This is how we're going to listen to the actions being dispatched by using the of type. And we'll need to bring that in from NGRX Effects. Then here we want to enter in the action that we're listening for. So from our support actions, and then the second one, sending customer support message. And if you remember, we're passing in a payload of the form data. This is the action that we're listening for. And then the operator, this is going to be RxJS, and I'm going to use merge map. And we want to pass in the payload that we're getting from here, and that's going to be, or actually the entire action, we'll pass that in. And this is how we're going to get access to the form data. And then the API source, that is going to be the service that we just pulled in. I'll remove this. This dot customer support, and inside there we have a method called send message. And we're getting back a Boolean, observable Boolean from that. We need to pass in the form data, and we're going to get that from our action file. Now, since this is returning an observable, we could pipe it, use the map operator. This will return as a new observable, and I'll need to pull that in from RxJS operators. This is going to be a Boolean that we're going to get back from our service, and we want to set this up. And this is going to be the second action that we just created from support actions, and it's going to be this one, the second one we just created, and we want to pass in that Boolean, and the name of the property is sent success, and we pass in the Boolean. Now normally I do use this catch error, but in this case I'm not going to use it. Let's remove this and make sure you leave the last bracket onto the end there. I keep making that mistake. So just remove this part, save it. And now we just set up our effect. And there's many different ways you can set up an effect. Like you could reroute the user to another page. You can give the user feedback depending on if certain actions are dispatched. And we'll be building all kinds of different effects. But this is a real common one, the one I just created here. Now that we set up our action file, our reducer file, and our effect, let's actually test it, run the application, and let's check it out in the browser. Just a reminder, on the home page, I'll have a snippets link for video 14. If you would like to copy and paste all the code that was created in this video, you could find that link on the home page. And if we go back to the form, now we're ready to test our new effect. Here I'll enter in a name, and now we should dispatch two actions when we hit send. So the first one's being dispatched from our component, like before, and then the second one is being dispatched from our effect. And we're being very descriptive here. From a glance, we know exactly who's calling these actions. In this case, it's from the customer support effect and then the event. And then if we look at the action, the payload that was passed in was true, and the property name is sent success, as we set in the action. And then if we look at our current state, we now have a is sent success because we updated our reducer, and it is set to true. If we look at the difference from the last state to the current state, it was null because we set it to null as the initial state, and now it's true. Now if we remove the name, we should get false. Let's hit send, and we look at the last action that was dispatched, and now it's false. Payload that was passed in was false. Our current state is false. And that's a basic rundown on how to create an effect. Now in the next video, let's actually update the view from the information that we're getting from our store. and we'll use a selector for that.